Welcome back everybody to another MOTOBOB video, where today you join me with the Honda CB500X. Now I've been really looking forward to reviewing this one because not only do you see a lot of them on the road, they seem to sell well, but also those people who do own them really seem to love them. The other thing as well is it looks quite rugged now. So does it live up to the adventure bike styling, or is it just a road bike that's jacked up a bit? Well, in this video we'll go through all the main categories, and at the end I'll tell you who I think it's perfect for. But before we get started, a massive thanks to BeMoto for sponsoring the channel. They make this jacket, the Husky Core. I'm also wearing the Robbie Arm jeans, so if you like the look of either of those, check out the links in the description for more information. So first up, the engine, and I've got to admit, I'm not normally a fan of a 180 parallel twin. Much like the Kawasaki 650s, I just don't really like the sound. But look, I have done plenty of miles on it, and it certainly does have quite a few redeeming features. You know, number one is that it's actually quite revvy. It goes up to about 8,000 or 9,000 revs, and it feels pretty happy there. So it feels kind of plucky, probably more so than the peak power figure would suggest. That means you can give it a decent hiding on some twisties, but also on the motorway, it actually feels fairly happy at 70 miles an hour, and you still feel like you could bang down a gear, rev it up, and get past some traffic. Certainly couldn't say the same of some of the more learner-friendly A2 bikes that I've ridden in the past. It's smooth, the slip assist clutch is very light, the gearbox feels good as well. But I think more than anything, it's the fuel efficiency. It's really hard to get this engine to properly dip into the fuel reserves. Even if you're pushing it and revving it up a bit, the fuel consumption never really seems to get that low. And then combine it with a 17-litre tank, which is pretty big for a bike of this stature. The range is really good, and it's not going to cost you loads of money if you commute every day on it. In fact, I actually ran an insurance quote on this bike with BeMoto, who sponsor the channel, with a generic profile for a customer. This came out as one of the most affordable bikes to insure that I've run through that system. All in all, it's a super economical little package, but you don't entirely compromise on performance and fun and liveliness. Now, they've obviously tried to give this bike a bit of an adventure bike and off-road identity with this big 19-inch front, tall suspension, and just the general sort of rugged styling of it. As you can see from the mud on it, I've done a little bit of light green laning today, and it's good enough. It wouldn't be your first choice. There's not a great deal of ground clearance. There's no protection under here. There's not going to be loads of mud clearance here either. But with these semi-knobblies, the 19 front, and a decent-ish standing position because the bars are fairly high up. The foot pegs definitely road focused, but overall, good fun, but not its primary focus. Realistically, 99% of the miles done on a bike like this are going to be on the road, but it still gets some really nice features, especially for this year. So you now get twin discs. They might not look much, these two-piston Nissans, but certainly I've found braking performance is excellent, especially at the front. I've not ridden the previous gen with the single disc, but for me, this is excellent braking performance for a bike at this price point and of this sort of character. The fork also gets a big upgrade. So it used to be a right way up fork, but this is now a Showa big piston separate function upside down fork, pretty similar to what you'll see on some of their 650s, and it really does feel very good at the front end. It doesn't get flustered when you push it hard. It feels relatively composed through corners, and I think that's maybe surprising given that they've given it that adventure bike tallness. I think it's fair to say, though, that it still biases towards comfort, especially on the shock. But overall, that's a big strength of this bike for me. The ride is nice and cushy, and I think for the sort of riding it's intended for, that's exactly what you want from it. The wind protection is surprisingly good, so it's got decent width on the tank here. An adjustable windscreen. Unfortunately, you have to do it with an Allen key. You can't really do it on the go, but still, a nice feature at this price point. Saddle's nice and comfy and not too tall, 830mm, which is very accessible for an adventure style bike. Plenty of space for a passenger, good grab rails, good foot pegs, and then just the general ergonomics of it. You're very upright, the bars are wide, and it just feels like a big bike essentially. I think heated grips are an accessory. There's a 12-volt socket though, so you could plug some heated gloves or a jacket in, and overall I just think it's a great bike for, like I say, commuting or even light touring. I think you could stick some bags on it and do a reasonable mileage on it, and I think that's its core strength as a smaller capacity bike. Features and tech-wise, there's not a great deal to say. I've probably mentioned most of it already. There is ABS, but no riding modes, no traction control or anything like that. You get the inverted LCD display that you'll see on a few of their other bikes. It's good that they fitted a sun visor over the top of it, so it's still fairly punchy in bright conditions. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a bike where you feel like your money's gone on good quality hardware and components and mechanical stuff. Twin discs, for example, and now you've got that Showa fork. The engine's good, it feels smooth and refined. And then you've got the build quality and finish. It really does feel well finished, and I wouldn't say there are any components or paintwork or anything like that that feels cheap. I would say there are more techie, feature-laden options out there. I was thinking of the KTM 390 Adventure. That gets a TFT dash and more electronics and rider aids. Even the Royal Enfield Himalayan now comes with its own tripper navigation device. But look, plenty of people aren't bothered about that stuff, and like I say, would much rather their money went into the riding fundamentals, and this bike certainly delivers on that. The other advantage it has is the looks. I think it's really nicely styled, and there are a couple of reasons why I think it stands out from the other bikes in the market. I mean, firstly, I think they've nailed that mini adventure bike look. Last week I was parked next to the previous gen, or like a couple of generations back, of the CB500X, and it wasn't a great looking bike, but they've really transformed it into something that has, yeah, like a baby Africa twin feel. The front wheel, like I say, those bigger, more robust looking forks, and then the way that it rises up to the front end, it doesn't quite have a beak, but it has a bit of that adventure look, and then the bulk around the fairing all comes together for a bike that has that hunched up sort of big tank vibe. Secondly, this color scheme, I think it looks brilliant in this setting of autumn where you've still got a bit of green, but also the oranges and yellows start coming out. This is called Pearl Organic Green, I think, but you've also got some sort of browny, yellowy highlights on it. I think it suits it down to the ground. It sort of emphasizes that two-wheeled Jeep feel that you get with an adventure bike, and for me, out of the black and red and this would be the obvious choice. As always though, it's a little bit subjective, so let me know what you think of it down in the comments. So on to the price, and look, it's not the cheapest bike in this sector of motorcycle, but like I said earlier, I think you can see where your money's going. There are options like the Himalayan, which undercuts it massively, but that bike is way down on power, and it doesn't have the quality of finish and build that you get with the Honda. I also mentioned the KTM 390 Adventure. Again, that's a few £100 cheaper. It does have a lot of good features, it gets great suspension, but that bike's a single and it doesn't feel as refined as the Honda in terms of the engine performance anyway. For me, the looks are better on this bike, and the finish and build quality is better than the KTM, and so if those are factors that appeal to you, then it probably does feel like good value. And with that, you know, I think there are a couple of types of rider who should maybe go and check this bike out at their Honda dealer. Firstly, someone looking for a really economical but good commuter. Fuel efficiency is great, it looks like the insurance costs are fairly low, and to purchase, you know, it's definitely at the lower end of the spectrum, even if there are cheaper bikes. Not only will it get you to work and back in plenty of comfort, but there's still enough there with the engine, the good brakes, good suspension, that if you do choose to ride it at the weekend, you can have some fun on the road or even off-road it a little bit. The other type of rider is someone who's thinking about going for an adventure bike, but is maybe intimidated by that sort of mid-capacity adventure bike like the Triumph Tiger 900 or F850 GS. Those bikes do feel quite tall and relatively top-heavy, whereas this is super approachable. 199 kilograms, 830mm in the seat height, doesn't feel at all intimidating, and so it seems like a great place to start your adventure.